Hi everybody, Kimball here, Light Miser. Um, so I'm going to be working on a new segment based around keeping old cars working and some new projects have come up. The idea behind this is I've learned over the last bunch of years that especially cars from the early 90s on were really built, whether American or foreign, for the most part, to go a good 250,000 miles if they're maintained properly and if you're willing to do a little bit of work on them. Um, I drive a 97 BMW 328i. I absolutely love that car. Hoping at some point in the near future to get another car to be my daily driver. And I really want to turbo that car, which my wife is shuddering at the concept of that, especially since the turbo kit is about half of what I paid for the car. Hoping that'll come together. She's got to give me permission on that one. What's come up recently is my third child is 15 right now, working on his learner's permit, and he'll be turning 16 in February. And so we've been discussing on and off a vehicle to get for him when he drives, something that's on the cheaper side because, let's face it, 16-year-old, new license, I don't care if they've been through learner's permit and driver's ed, they don't know how to drive. They're going to hit stuff. You don't want to be getting them a car with much value to it because they're going to kill it. Been through two kids already. So we've just been thinking in our minds, what car, be looking out for cars in the $3,000 range that aren't too high of mileage, hopefully, again, given that price point there, and that have a good quality track record. Well, my wife's sister's husband, his mother passed away, unfortunately, last year. Very sweet woman. And he's finally decided to part ways with her old car, and we've been able to pick that up. So I'm going to do a quick review of that car and things that I'm going to be doing to it. I haven't done anything to the car yet, just picked it up yesterday. And that, with the hopes of letting people there that might be a little bit afraid to wrench on a car, let them know that it's not that scary. A lot of times you can get a project partway done, and if it's beyond you, take it to a shop and have them finish it, and you've still saved money on the long run. This car, we got at a really great price point on it because of some of the stuff that needs to happen to it. And I'm thinking with about, $500-600 worth of parts and work on it, we can be turning over a $1,700 to $2,000 value car to my son to drive, and something that'll last him into the early years of college. So let's start walking through it. So this is our 99 Chevy Lumina. It's got about 135,000 miles on it and got it at a pretty decent discount price. For one, the paint job. This car did sit garage for the last several years. Before that, lived for a while down in Vegas, aka God's Sandblaster. And as you can see, the hood has lost most of its paint, quite a bit of both fenders and a little bit of the front bumper. And at first I was thinking, this is going to be a high school / college kid car. So just get a couple cans of spray paint and let my 15-year-old have at it. I was talking to my dad about it, and he reminded me that he's got a couple of air guns. So what I think we're going to actually do is a fun project because A, I've never done this, and B, it gets my 15-year-old involved with it, so he's got personal attachment to this car. I'm also going to try and get him help on the mechanics, but I'm actually going to take the hood off and the fenders off, have him sand them down, and then we're going to paint them, and let him choose whatever color he wants. I'll probably do the painting myself. I may also do the roof because I didn't realize that roof's pretty well faded as well. This is supposed to be a gold color. I haven't decided if I want to go that far with it or not. The back bumper's got a little bit of spot there. That I'll probably just spray paint because I just don't care about the car quite that much. Again, it's got 135,000 miles, and I'm hoping to get it to go, 225, 250. These cars are very well known for that. Now, one of the other reasons why I got this at a discount, these cars, this series, is known that the AC compressor, when it gets to be about 200 or 100,000 miles, tends to start having the gaskets dry out and leak out all of the refrigerant. So there is no AC on this car. It blows air. It's just nice and warm air. Some of you may not think it's such a big deal, but except we live in the desert. Today was a pretty cool day. It barely broke 100. This time of year it's usually about 110, 115, and it is a dry heat. I mean, normal humidity out here in the summer is 5% humidity, very dry heat. If you've never experienced dry versus humid, you really have no appreciation for that statement. That being said, when my 20-year-old daughter found out that I'm planning on fixing the AC on this car for her younger brother's first car, she was quite angry with me because and I know my oldest boy will be as well, when my oldest boy turned 16, he got my old Hyundai Santa Fe that I had just racked up 135,000 miles on, and the AC had just died on it. And I didn't bother trying to fix that. Well, what they didn't know is I looked into it, and at that time when I handed it off to him, the car had a value of about $1,200, and to fix that car was about $1,200. This car to fix the AC is about $200. It's a huge difference there. Yeah, it's a bit unfair, but I only have so much sympathy for him because my first vehicle that I drove out here in the desert, and my older brother had before me, had no AC and no option it wasn't a repair job. I'll tell you about that vehicle sometime else. But so I lived out here in the desert with no AC. They can do it for a bit too. I understand why they're a bit miffed, but with what I'm planning to do in this car, again, it's going to bring up the car to 2 to 3 times what I paid for it. Let's see what we got here under the hood. Part of why I did choose this, before I drove it, I started doing some research on these vehicles. And again, found out they've got a very high reliability on it. I'm not sure if this is the 3.1 liter or the 3.8 liter engine. I need to do a little more research there. It's probably the 3.1. My brother-in-law's mother bought this new, actually. And so she's the one who drove it to 135,000 miles, one owner. The compressor itself, this is the water pump up here. The compressor is down there. So, I mean, changing that out and charging it is not that big of a deal. So that's one of the projects that we'll be showing here on the video, on future YouTube videos. Some of the other things I'm going to do this since it's gotten to this mileage and it's sat for quite a while. When I drove this home, I got a low coolant warning. Once it cooled off, I checked. It was a little bit low, not much. Topped it off with just water, which you're not really supposed to do. The reason being is one of the projects I'm going to do on this is I'm going to go ahead, since it's 135,000 miles on it, replace the water pump. I'm going to replace the thermostat, which is back underneath the air intake housing there, and give it a radiator flush. Again, preventative maintenance, making sure that this car lasts as long as possible. I just had to do it on my BMW, and I feel it's stuff that's not hard to do. You really just need a basic set of wrenches for most of the stuff, and you can do it yourself, and it really adds to the longevity of the vehicle. And then you end up starting to get some personal pride in your vehicle, not necessarily for the looks, but the fact that it drives and you're the one wrenching on it. So the other maintenance on it, I'm going to replace the spark plugs and probably the wires with it. That high energy and the heat slowly erodes how well they function, which should punch up the engine a little bit. Thankfully, this car is a bit heavy, and the transmission it's a grandma transmission. So again, for my son's first car, not so worried about him taking off. It's not like my BMW. I also like the fact that it is a heavier car for his first car, so that if somebody hits him, he's got a higher chance of walking away from it from some little tinfoil Japanese car. I've driven them. I can say that with authority. One of the other things I'm going to be doing, and this is going to be in conjunction with when I take the hood and fenders off. When I have it off, it's probably when I'm going to do the radiator and the coolant. What I'm also going to be doing is replacing the air intake manifold. I was debating whether having a shop do this, which would probably only be $500 or so, just because it's time consuming. But we've got the time, especially since it's about to start cooling off here, so working at night on this vehicle won't be bad. It'll probably take me, I'm guessing, a week or two to do it, since I have a day job, because there's just a lot of parts I have to come off and go back on. They tend to go out by about 150, the gasket by 150,000 miles, and you start getting your coolant mixed in with your oil, which isn't good for the engine. Figured hit that one early, and again, give the longevity I want out of this vehicle. One of the other things I was hoping to do today, which just ran out of time with helping a friend move, was to get an oil change on it, basic service. I don't generally do that kind of stuff myself. Just, to me, it's not worth the time versus the $20 saved. But of course, if someone wants to, sponsor one of my videos with oil filter, money, something like that, I could be very well convinced to throw in a video about changing oil. Let's see, is there anything else I was planning on doing? Trying to remember everything off the top of my head. Yeah, I believe that was most of the preventive maintenance I was planning on doing on this end of the vehicle. Let's have a look at the inside of this car. Never mind that wood. That's for a whole different project that I'm going to be doing later that has nothing to do with cars. So again, 135,000 miles. It's showing, someone dropped some fluid in here. But Grandma kept her pretty clean. There's some cleanup that my son can do. Back seat is pretty good there as well. So it's not like a teenager has been hammering this car already up to 135,000 miles. Plus the fact Grandma wasn't a smoker, so I don't have to worry about any of that. Some other things I am going to be dealing with here pretty soon. If turn on the engine here, or not turn. Let the computer come up, so you can see that I've got this service engine soon be taken care of when I do the oil change. But I've got that security error coming up there, and that security error has to do with the safety system tied in with the keys. These of cars, the keys have a little resistor on there, and the ignition switch, the ignition cylinder, checks the resistance that comes across that, and if it's off, then you get that alert. And if it detects it being off, the resistance being off too far, it actually won't let the car start. So that's going to be one of the first things that I change. The cylinder wires go through the steering column and down in the connection below, and those wires over time get fried, and that's what causes that issue. So I figured change that out first thing so I don't end up having a car I can't start. Again, the cylinder, I found them online for $35. You do need to get a couple specialty parts to get the steering wheel apart, but altogether I got a kit that has both tools I need for about $20. Then I'll, from what I've read, I've got to, once I get the cylinder changed out, I have to take this key and the new key that comes with it over to a key shop so they can replace it with a key with the right size resistor that matches the computer for the car and cut the key in there. So, probably another $10-15 for that. All told, you're into the $75 to get that, take care of that problem. The other issue here, which is not really an issue drivability wise, but is definitely an issue for a teenager or when I want to borrow this car, is this stereo is fried. Buttons missing from it. I have no idea what the LOC means, and I honestly don't care. I can get a decent JVC deck in here that's digital only, Bluetooth, which is what my son streams everything off of, without a CD player for, $65. And I've also got an old sub with a built-in amp that I'll throw in the back for him just to be nice. That's totally non-essential, but I'm going to do it anyway because, I know how I was with wanting stereos at that point. And again, I'm going to have him involved as much as possible, so he's starting to learn about cars and how to work on stuff himself. I started replacing stereos when I was about 15, and more than once had friends show up on early Saturday mornings asking me to rewire their decks for them. Let's see. Yeah, that's an interesting piece that we found in one of the air vents. It looks like a hand from some kind of doll. Yeah, that's not creepy at all. Already finished the walk around on the car here. And again, for 135,000 miles, it's looking fairly decent. One thing that I found very humorous, look at this car, a bit of a grandma car. I didn't realize that this has the trunk of like a Lincoln Continental. I mean, seriously, you can fit two dead bodies in there easily. And again, the area is fairly clean. It's interesting on the paint. I've been telling my kids about this. It's something I've discovered from maintenance that I didn't do on my cars and that I do now. In the late 80s, early 90s, scientists discovered that the lead we were putting in paint was actually, bad for us and caused cancer, so they stopped using it. Problem is that the paint is now much, much softer than it used to be. Paint back in the 50s and 60s, if there was rain, great, that washed your car for you, you're done. With the newer paint, though, rain is actually bad for your car. And if you read your owner's manuals, it actually says you need to wax it regularly. So at the very least, at least once a month, you need to run it through an automated car wash that gets wax on there. That way, it'll protect the paint, keep it from rubbing off and getting those thin spots. So things that you learn over time. So anyway, this video series will be the upgrades that I'm doing to this car, mainly maintenance and the simple fixes to make it safe for my son. And then hopefully by the time I got this wrapped up and he's driving it, I'll be starting to work on my BMW. Fingers crossed. Got to put in all the usual YouTube stuff of smashing that thumbs up and hitting the subscribe, hitting the notification if you're interested as the videos come out with this series. If you have any comments or questions, email me. I am not an automotive guru by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of this is stuff that I've learned over time, and I've learned that you can find quite a bit on the internet with YouTube and just other browsing on how to do a lot of these fixes yourself. A lot of it's not nearly as complicated as you may think. I was very intimidated with some of my earlier cars, and I'm sure I'll talk about those experiences as I'm working on this and other cars. So if you like her, join on board and let's have some fun.